I'm Turk Strawman at the Rhyme Q Amateur Rapper. Thank you for selecting this video on Stay Clear of Psychopaths. I give personal experience here. Sorry there's no visual. I happen to have no clothes on right now. I didn't give a shit. I didn't feel like getting dressed, but I wanted to make a video. Right now, this is it. Before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now's your chance. Take the chance right now. Take the time. Do it right now. That way you can activate the notification bell feature and be apprised of my new uploads. Something else you can do right now. Share the joy of this channel with others. How? Give this video a thumb up right now, lest you forget to do it later. Stay away from psychopaths. Personal experience. Alright, let's see. Which one am I going to talk about? Alright, Big Jim. I knew Big Jim in New York City. Well, when was this? Early 80s. Late 70s, early 80s. On 2nd Avenue and 6th Street, right in the corner, there was an apple and cider stand. I worked there till about 2 in the morning, almost every evening. Big Jim would come by. That's how I got to know him. Seemed like a real friendly guy. Dressed pretty well, decently, casual. He was about 6'5". He wore size 15 shoes. He had a pretty good sense of humor. Always had a bottle of beer with him. He would come there after work, 2 blocks away. There was a rather large building. It was a drug rehab center for youth. Big Jim was the vice president. He was in charge of all the counselors and the psychologists. He had a master's in psychology himself. I didn't know he was a psychopath until a lot later. But I got to know him. Alright, now, I just uploaded a video about when I walked away from the drug cartel. Something like that. Yeah, when I walked away from the drug cartel. That's what it's called. I got a comment to it that said something about, this is amazing. I must have, spiritual protection. Well, yeah, I do. And I thought that was a rather astute observation. And also, anytime I feel like talking, keep on talking, make videos. So, here we go. Turns out that Jim got word. Well, I forget how this happened, but it didn't go through the grapevine. That was forbidden. I guess I told him. I don't know how it came up. Oh yeah, my boss knew Jim rather well for a good while. My boss, Bob Stone. He told me that Jim was a cocaine addict. Shot it up almost every day. Well, I had just started with this cocaine thing with the cartel, the Colombians. So I approached Jim. I told him that if he comes by in 1/2 hour, I will transform him from a needle user to a freebaser. He came by. He doubted me. And in 1/2 hour, he was converted. my ether freebase with this cocaine was out of this world. It was better than a mainline. Well, Jim became my best customer. Every day, about noon or 1 p.m., he would come to my apartment. He would have left early from work, having manipulated the books, the petty cash, which had a pretty large, amount of money in it. He would steal from the petty cash there, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a day, and manipulate the whole thing. Never got caught. And he would leave early from work, say he had other things to do, come straight to my place and spend it. The deal was, you come to my apartment, you buy the cocaine. You either leave with it like it is, or you engage in, right there in my apartment, the freebase, which you would not get, like I was doing it, anywhere else, as far as I know, given the way the Colombians acted about it, anywhere else in the world. But it would disintegrate if you didn't smoke it, if you didn't use it. Within about half hour, it would just melt away. It was an extremely fine powder. All right. It would just kind of like evaporate. So you had to do it at my place. And here's the deal. You had to buy the cocaine, right? And then you had to split the freebasing with me. You had to split it 50-50. You'd come every day and do this. He often would stay well into the night. I'd tell him he has to leave. I'd get tired, exhausted. I would be doing business 24 hours a day because I was freebasing 24 hours a day up to 6 days in a row. No sleep, no food. And this was largely because of Jim. He wouldn't leave. Sometimes he'd stay all night. And then, he was married, lived in Brooklyn, a beautiful wife, strawberry blonde hair, green eyes, very intelligent woman. She thought he didn't do this shit in his life anymore. Sometimes he'd call her from my place and say, make up a lie. Still at work. Helping a special case. Before he got in touch with me and converted, he'd go up on the roof of the building he worked in and shoot up there. A friend of mine, who you may have heard of elsewhere on my channel, Mike, he would go up there. He'd sneak up the fire escape, up onto the roof, and shoot up. And here would come Jim, and do it too. Anyway, Jim seemed to be on a mission to wear me out. He kept this up for months. I was getting worn out. He'd go home and get sleep. He was wearing me down. He would not leave. One day, he challenged me. He had been there for 2 or 3 days straight. I had to keep awake around him because who knows what he would do if I fell asleep in my apartment, right? I had to watch this guy. I had heard from my boss, Bob Stone, that Jim used to go all around the neighborhood, the Lower East Side, Alphabet City, where on probably almost every block there was a drug operation. Cocaine and heroin. I heard that Jim ripped them all off and got away with it. So I asked him, and he told me. He said, oh yeah, I'd just go and I'd watch and I'd figure out where they kept everything. Like their little clubhouse or whatever. And I'd burst in and I would rob them. Right in front of them. I'd just walk in, kick ass. They all had guns, you know. Jim just kicked ass and took it all from every spot. Then one day, a little boy about 7 or 8 years old, a little Puerto Rican kid, saw Jim walking on the sidewalk. And this kid caught up to him and looked at him and said, I know you. You ripped off my family. And Jim said, get the fuck out of here, you little punk. I don't give a shit who you are. And this kid pulled out a .22 pistol, pointed it up at Jim's temple, and fired. As the kid pulled the trigger, Jim put his hand up, open hand, between his head and the muzzle of the pistol. The bullet stuck in his hand. And Jim said, get the fuck out of here, I told you to. He walked off with a bullet in his hand, bleeding. He didn't give a shit. Then, another brother saw him a little while after that and got him. At gunpoint, took him back to their clubhouse, sat him in an old schoolhouse chair, you know, with the wooden arm on it to put your books on. Stuck Jim's hand, palm up, on that. Stuck it there with a knife all the way through down into the wood. And they wanted to talk. Jim said, I ain't talking to you, you pieces of shit. And ripped his hand up off the fucking knife and left. That was Jim. So now he wouldn't leave my apartment. And I had to keep my eye on him. Twice my size, twice my weight. And he was a formidable opponent. I was getting that idea. One day he challenged me. He said, I'll leave, but you have to do something for it. Took off his shoes and socks. He stood there in front of me with his feet 1 inch apart from each other. Now, he knew I was a knife enthusiast, and I loved to practice throwing knives in my apartment. I'd throw them into the walls. I'd throw them into the floor. The guy who lived below me was going to law school. He didn't really like the thumping on the floor, and I didn't care. I did it all the more. I kept telling him I didn't hear anything. He said, it sounds like you're bouncing a ball up there or something, or jumping up and down. I said, I swear to God, I have no clue what you're talking about. So anyway, Jim stood there with his bare feet an inch apart from each other. And he said, you need to stand back there, about 4 feet away, he pointed. And you need to throw one of your knives as hard as you can and stick it in the floor between my feet. Then I'll leave. I argued. Took me about 20 minutes. I couldn't argue him out of it. He was determined. He was determined. I said, what if I stick it in your foot? He said, I don't care. You're not going to. It's not going to work. That's not going to happen. You're going to stick it in the floor. Finally, I did it. I threw it as hard as I could. It stuck in the floor right between his feet. Then he left. He was wearing me out. All right. One day, he owed me about $500. He said, I want to take you somewhere. Get your jacket on, let's go. Wouldn't tell me where. It was dark out. He said, I just want to take you somewhere. I want to pay you back what I owe you. We got on a train. Came out in New Jersey somewhere. Went to a really nice residential neighborhood. Very quiet, lovely homes. Lovely. Kind of like almost a gated community, but there was no gate. It was that kind of an area, though, affluent. Told me to stand out on the sidewalk and watch. Now, this is the first house. He did this to about 10 of them. I remember that first one. You could see in the living room window. There were just shears, sheer curtains there, not really like light blockers, just shears, right? And you could, there was, you could see that there was a light on in the living room, a television on, and a man and a woman sitting in a chair watching TV. Jim went to the back door and quietly got in there. I was scared as hell. I was an accomplice to this shit. I saw upstairs bedroom light come on in the front of the house facing me. And then the curtains flew open, and there was Jim looking right at me. And he started holding stuff up and giving me like a questioning look, waiting for my yes or no. He held up all kinds of shit. Gold candle holders, jewelry, tons of it. Money. Put it all in one of their pillowcases. Took his time. At one point, I saw the man get up and leave the living room. I figured he might be going upstairs. Who knows? I signaled to Jim to get the fuck out of there. He turned off the light. Just as the light was coming back on up there, and there was the man. Jim was coming out the back door. Came to me. He said, that ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. He did this to a lot more houses. While people were there. Sometimes I saw him passing by in the living room behind the people. And it was about, 10 o'clock in the night. People were watching TV. Johnny Carson, I guess. He gave me everything he got. That was to pay me back. This was extremely stressful, folks. And he knew he was stressing me out. He knew it. Eventually, he won. I passed out. I just went to sleep when nobody was there. Apparently, I slept for about a week. I vaguely remembered after that, once Jim told me that he'd been coming by and calling up to my window for me during that whole week. And I would come to the window, naked, holding a knife, and just stare at him. And then it would go away. I vaguely remembered something like that, like I had dreamt it once he reminded me of it. Doing that numerous times. But I was asleep. I was unconscious. When I finally woke up, all of the cocaine was gone. It had been under my bed in a box. That's when I owed the Colombians money. If you look at that other video when I walked away from the drug cartel, one of the events in that video was when I got ripped off and I owed them money. And they came by to collect, and I paid, and they left. Turns out that Jim was responsible for that. He had got together with the super of the building, Tudo, the cousin of my Colombian connection guy. They had taken it all. They damn near got me killed. Jim was gone from the city, in prison, for robbing somebody in a store, pretending to have a gun, and he got busted. Went away for a long time. That's when I found out the truth, because he had told Bob Stone, and Bob told me. That was after I had even moved out of the city, some years later. He took all that time, Jim did. All that bending and wearing out my will, my brain, my emotions, everything. Totally exhausted me just to do that. The man was a psychopath. He told me he was once. I have found out afterwards, throughout the remainder of my life, every time I have got involved in close dealings with someone who turns out to be a psychopath, they have all told me they are at some point or other. Jim, a dangerous man. What's the point? Stay away from psychopaths. And if somebody tells you they are one, they are one. Why would somebody say it if it weren't true about themselves? Why would somebody say it as a joke? That wouldn't happen. Stay away from psychopaths. And by the way, they run the world. This world is run by predators, parasites, psychopaths, parasitic, predatorial, psychopathic power people. Stay away. They are dangerous, and they will hurt you. they will hurt you badly. That's my message. You like the video? Give it a thumb up. You didn't like it? Give it one anyway. Who cares? Just give it one. Subscribe, get notified. Share the joy of the channel with others. Thanks for selecting this video. Stay away from psychopaths. Sorry, I didn't get dressed first. I'm Turstraman at Thank you, Ramacharaka. Be well.